How you doing, guys? It's Alessandro here from Spicy Moustache with some new tips in order to help you creating your own green area, indoor or outdoor, following the principle of do as nature does. We are quickly approaching the autumn season, and with historical ties to Halloween, pumpkins are always associated to autumn. However, to pick your pumpkin on time for Halloween, you need to start sowing them really early in the season. Following a few easy steps and recommendations, you will have an incredible decorative element for your garden and an amazing ingredient for your kitchen. So dig up that like button, and today I'll meet with Jack to share with you 6 of my best tips to grow loads of pumpkins at home. There are 2 ways to sow your pumpkin seeds and grow your plants in the garden. The first one is to sow seeds indoor. Loosely pack some potting soil in a cup or a container with some hole at the bottom for drainage. Plant 2 or 4 pumpkin seeds at 1 inch deep in your soil. Water the pumpkin seeds just enough so that the soil is moist but not soaking wet. Place the cup or pot on a heating pad. Once the seedlings have germinated, thin out all but the strong one and place the cup under some grow lights with the setting at the minimum. If you keep the seedling on the heating pad, it will cause it to grow faster. Alternatively, if you don't have a heat pad, another idea is to use a source of heat in your house, like for example your modem, and place the seeds in a box with kitchen towels and seal the box so the humidity doesn't evaporate.
Right, so we're amongst this huge pumpkin here. So I personally like to transplant my squash into the garden just to raise it nice and healthy and just to avoid slug damage. But this is another way. So this was from a seed that was from a squash pumpkin in the compost bay from the previous year. And it found the optimal conditions. So it started to grow in early June, way past the last frost. It's been grown in compost, so obviously that's a mulch, so it's regulating temperature, it's found a mother load of nutrition and just gone absolute bananas. So you can just sow straight into the ground in a nice healthy compost and then mulch that with like a straw or a wood chip, and it'll be absolutely fine. You want to just avoid pests, so slugs will damage seedlings early. As you can see with what I said about moisture, once it gets to a decent size and the leaves start covering the soil around it, it's starting to create a microclimate, so that it's putting shade on the soil, and that creates that microclimate, so it regulates soil temperature, which is super important, and regulates that moisture under the leaves.
When planting your pumpkin, just make sure to use a well-draining soil. I usually mix a few different things, but you could also buy a pre-made soil. To make your own mix, just mix a standard 50 liters potting soil bag, like BioBee's light mix. Add a few handfuls of perlite, and also I add homemade compost, and if you have access to it, volcanic rock dust would be ideal. I'll link all the soil amendments in the description of the video, as well as the pre-mix that I suggested. You could also add some more casting in the hole wherever you are planning to plant your pumpkin, because that's going to provide some extra nutrients for the plant.
Right guys, so this is how I make a comfrey and nettle fertilizer. Harvesting water from the greenhouse, stored in these IBC tanks. You may not have the space to do this. I used to do it on my allotment in a small water tank, but it's the same process, just this is upscaled. So I've got a solar aerator that is just going up to a motor and into these little water stones, which is pumping oxygen into my water tank. And what I have here is a pair of old tights. This is filled with stinging nettles and comfrey. Stinging nettles is a mineral dense plant. Comfrey has a big taproot that goes down into the subsoil and brings up those minerals being stored into that subsoil, brings it to the surface and stores it in the leaves. So you want to cut the leaves of that and stinging nettles, and you can put stems in as well. It releases the nutrients through the porous of the tights. So you want to just dunk that in there. You want to change that every few months. Those nutrients are leaching into your water and it's going to mix into the water, so you don't have to dilute it.
When you plant pumpkin seeds outside, remember that pumpkins needs an incredible amount of space to grow well. It mainly depends on the variety that you decided to grow, because bush varieties spreads less than vining varieties. If you have a small space like my urban garden, you can train your plants to grow vertically using your fence or your greenhouse or any other vertical space in your garden. In my case, I use my greenhouse and fence to train it vertically and make it grow on top of the greenhouse and along the fence. I simply used a cable spinned around the main stem of my pumpkin and hooked on the top of my greenhouse. And so I save up loads of space. Remember to choose a variety that doesn't grow too big and the fruit stays relatively small, because you might potentially damage the plant or the vertical space that you decided to use to grow your plant.
So spacing your pumpkin, this one is a complete anomaly. This is Atlantic Giant, so it's just taken over. But normal squash, I do about 90 centimeters to a meter or 3 foot, and that is plenty of space. It's plenty of root space, but also you're going to get a nice carpet of pumpkin foliage. So that's again what I mentioned about the microclimate, keeping the soil cool, and you're going to get great pumpkins growing everywhere. It's just one of those plants that it's gonna look amazing in the garden, and it will take over, but it's going to give you so much food, and it's completely worth it.
The best way to water your pumpkin is as close as possible to the surface of your soil. The main reason is to avoid watering your leaves and promote airborne disease like powdery mildew or other kind of fungal disease. Also, to prevent water to splash from your soil to your leaves, I recommend to mulch, because it helps to reduce the bounce back effect of the water touching your soil. And also it comes with a variety of benefits for your garden and for your pumpkin, like water retention, so you won't have to water that often, and also protection of your soil and your microorganisms in the soil. I usually water my pumpkin early in the morning, so there won't be excess moisture left over on the leaves, and the plant has enough time throughout the day to dry out. A drip water irrigation system, it's ideal to water this plant because they need a constant supply of water and deep down into the root system. A quick tip is to stop watering your plants 7 to 10 days before your harvest, so you improve the flavor of the pumpkin, and also the storage will be for a longer period of time. Basically, by stopping watering, you will help the plant to redirect all the energies into the fruit, and so it will improve the flavor and the storage could last for longer. On the other hand, make sure to not overwater your plant, because that could cause problems as well, like rotting of the root, called root rot, or the fruit could start rotting and decay because of the excess moisture at the root zone. Harvesting pumpkins, it's a fun and hard-working experience because some of them might reach a really big size. However, you should leave them to mature on the plant for as long as you can. The reason is, unlike tomatoes or bananas, pumpkins won't improve after picking. Pumpkins are mature when they have a firm rind and a solid color throughout. They should also have a hard exterior shell that resists denting whenever you press a fingernail into them. Another way to check is to tap or knock on the rind, and you should hear a nice hollow sound. Pumpkins should be ready to harvest around mid-fall, and you should definitely bring them in before the first frost or before the temperatures drops under the 40 degrees Fahrenheit. When harvesting, use a sharp knife. In this case, we are using a hori-hori to cut it on the stem and leave about 2 inches of green stem still connected to the pumpkin. Pumpkin growing can be rewarding and fun, and I highly recommend to grow your own pumpkin, especially if you would like to show off some nice harvest in time for Halloween. I hope you liked today's video, and if so, please subscribe to my channel, turn on the notification settings so you can be notified every time I post a new video, and I'll see you next Friday for a new episode. Thank you so much for watching. See ya!